It'll get worse before it gets better. That's the assessment of Germany's economy by the panel of economic experts that advises the government in Berlin. In the latest forecast by the group, sometimes referred to as the wise men and women of German economics, they are predicting the German economy will shrink by 0.4% this year as it struggles to recover its strength before posting moderate growth of 0.7% in 2024. Well, the experts are also urging the German government to act now to avoid longer-term problems. To modernise the economy, the council suggests linking retirement age to life expectancy, meaning that Germans would work longer to keep the pension system sustainable. Among other suggestions are the experts saying that they want to make it easier for migrants to enter Germany's job market. They'd like to see more investment in education, and they're also recommending changes in capital market policies to make it easier for startups to get investment. Well, we can now speak to one of the members of the German Council of Economic Experts, Ulrike Malmendier. Thanks a lot for being with us. So what's holding back the German economy right now?
It's really important to distinguish between the short-term constraints and the longer-term constraints. In the short term, we are still coming out of COVID, we are coming out of supply chain issues after the energy crisis, and we're still digesting all of that. And that's why we are predicting for this year, for sure, negative growth. Next year, a little more optimistic, positive, but, nothing humongous. But to some extent, our annual report really puts the focus on the medium to long-term perspective. And the fact that even there, things are not looking great should be completely separated from these energy prices, inflation kind of issues we are currently wrestling with. We have to recognize that what's happening in Germany is that, because of demographics, we don't have enough labor. We need to increase the volume of hours worked. That's the number one concern. But also the thing we call total factor productivity in economics. So basically, how much growth can you generate with the capital that is invested right now? Where do the innovative, great ideas come from? Germany has been slowing down. And then also capital stock in and of itself is aging. So these are the three factors we hope people think about and not just the short term, what's the next quarter type of questions.
Although when we are talking about, what the next quarter is, why does it feel as though Germany's finding it harder to recover from the pandemic and obviously the energy shortage than its neighbours appear to be?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. In particular, if you remember that at the beginning of COVID-19, Germany was actually getting through it relatively well. So trying to understand what happened then is a really interesting question. Now, we do have to say that in some of the other European economies, you saw a bigger crash in productivity, in GDP, because some of the industries were more affected. Think about tourism or other service-oriented industries, which were maybe less heavily represented in Germany. Now, these economies now benefit from the catching up, from getting back to prior levels, while in Germany you don't see so much this upswing. But at the same time, these medium to long-term factors I really want to talk about, they are kicking in right now. We are seeing the constraints in the labor market. Companies are feeling the need to get more, to increase the workforce and are not able to do it. At the same time, we do have to acknowledge that we did think consumers would, pick up faster, that consumption spending would go up faster. We haven't seen that. That's one of the things that was not directly predicted, and that's feeding into these somewhat lower numbers.
OK, let's talk about these medium to long-term effects that you've been mentioning and about the German workforce, because we talk about it as a medium and long-term effect, but it's already here, this shortage of skilled workers here in Germany, for example. So what are the solutions that you and your colleagues are putting forward?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. It's already here, but with the baby boomer generation entering retirement, it will get worse. So we want to say it really strongly, even if that's not happening today, that's what all the politicians should be thinking about, the people who have influence on policy. And so you can start by trying to address it with people who are already in Germany. You can try to further increase labor market participation or even hours worked in particular by females. Females do have a higher participation quota now, but it's often still part-time. So getting women to go to full-time would be one aspect. But it won't suffice. We do need to drastically increase immigration of labor workforce and putting a lot of effort into simplifying that, making it less bureaucratic, less complicated, making it less difficult to get the acceptance of your degree abroad, that it's kind of equivalent to what we have in Germany, is the number one goal. If I may add one thing, which is kind of outside of my expertise, this has to be coupled with a culture of being welcoming to people, of trying to help them, of trying to invite them to the country. And Germany does not have the greatest tradition here. When we say that we need gross 1.5 million people to immigrate into Germany to keep 400K net to stay here, well, we could also work on fewer people leaving. That would certainly also help. And I think that's a margin we can work on as well.
Yeah, but these are all things that have been talked about for a while here in Germany, that it's not welcoming enough to foreign workers and it isn't doing enough to attract them. There's another thing that I want to pick on that's mentioned in the report as well that's related to all of this, and it's potential reforms to the pension age here in Germany, basically trying to get people to work a bit longer. When you throw in things like immigration and making people work for longer, these are controversial issues. Has the German government got some tough decisions to make?
Indeed, and it doesn't help to postpone them any further. Often there are concerns also about the political consequences, about political radicalization that may come out of such decisions. The issue is, if we wait now, it will be even more problematic in the future. So thinking about pension reform, we are at a stage now, we're just working on one margin. So, for example, working for longer, if you're healthier, won't suffice. We have to work on different dimensions. We have to get a funded capital market-based component. We have to think about indexation to keep real pensions constant. There are different factors with which pensions are adjusted to account for changes in population. It turns out we have to work with all of them. While, even within the council, we have somewhat different views on what should be done exactly how. The big message here is it's really urgent now, and we need to work along use all of these channels. Otherwise, there's really little hope.
And your report says that not only is Germany facing an ageing population, but also an ageing industrial base. Is the point there that Germany's failing to move with the times?
Failing to move with the times. So I think emphasizing the aging is definitely correct. I think The Economist has been talking about the sick man of Europe. I'm not so sure about that, but maybe the old man of Europe, both in terms of population and in terms of capital stock. For the latter, companies need to have incentives to invest in Germany. They need to know in which direction are we going, where are investments worthwhile, and to help that should be one of the key priorities for the government.
So this is all about encouraging innovation within Germany and encouraging startups. How do you actually go about doing that?
Yeah, that is a really crucial topic. If we want to get back to a higher growth path, we can't expect that those companies and those industries which have been carrying Germany in the past, which have been the motor of Germany in the past, are necessarily the ones that get us back to the higher growth rates. So, as you're saying, we need young, innovative companies with certainly often risky ideas, and not all of them will work out. We need those to find an environment in Germany where they can not only start, but they can also grow here and not all leave, for Silicon Valley if they are successful. Germany has had quite some improvement in terms of the early stage of this. German government has been seed funding, has been collaborating on helping these companies to get off the ground. Where we had a hard time is the later stage, when these companies are becoming successful. They need funding of 50 million, 100 million, 150 million to get the private companies to put private players to put money in, the big insurance companies, the pension funds, maybe the family office. That needs to increase. We have a recent success. It was much celebrated that how Aleph Alpha got this big late-stage funding. We need much more of that.
A lot of the stuff we've talked about, as you said, is a present issue, or are present issues. Can you reassure Germans that this isn't all coming too late, these changes?
I certainly wish they had gotten started earlier. You mentioned pensions. Had we started earlier, some of these changes which are needed now would be hurting less. But at this point, we have put a lot of effort in our annual report to really calculate through the different policy measures, for example, thinking about pension reform. And we think that this combo of capital-funded aspect, working with retirement age, and these other two adjustment factors, indexation, etc., I mentioned, can really solve it in a relatively smooth manner. I also see really a change when I talk to people in the government of all three parties involved in terms of understanding that we need young innovative firms, we need the growth to come out of there, we need to focus on capital market-based investment, not just our traditional banking system. So I do have some hope that we can turn it around.
OK, Ulrike Malmendier from the German Council of Economic Experts. Thank you so much for speaking to us and for bringing us your insights on this.
My pleasure.